Sydney, you just won Battle of the Experts 2022, which is, for those watching who don't know, the national mock trial competition hosted by Drexel Law. And you were named the best advocate at the tournament, the top scoring individual competitor. How does it feel?
It was such a relief. I feel like because we went into the tournament, obviously wanting to win. And then the whole weekend was just like so stressful, like through and through. 6 rounds at Battle of the Experts, you guys, and I was in all of them. So I was exhausted. And I think like the moment that they announced that UCLA had three-peat the win, I was just like, a weight just came off of my shoulders. I was so proud of me, Peter, and Catherine. And with the Best Advocate Award, I feel like it was just a cherry on top. I felt really reassured that I am good at this. And it was great. I feel really happy with how it went.
So you mentioned Peter and Catherine, those are your teammates, but for those who are college competitors who are watching, they're also college competitors, Peter and Catherine. Tell the people who are watching about Peter and Catherine.
Peter is a competitor from UMass Amherst. It's actually really funny because I hit Peter in college and that's how we originally met. And then I saw him at this like UCLA admit thing. Now we're really good friends. And Catherine is a competitor from USC, and they're both very talented.
So this year's Battle of the Experts, you said it was a three-peat for UCLA. The last 2 that UCLA won were on Zoom because of the pandemic. And this was the first Battle of the Experts that was in person at the Klein Institute of Trial Advocacy, which is our trial advocacy building in Philadelphia. Talk about the building, Sid. What'd you think of the building? Tell the viewers at home how you liked it.
It's gorgeous. I mean, it's such a blessing, I feel like, to be able to compete there because, you know, with tournaments, you never know what you're going to get. You get like a shit classroom or you could get like the grand courtroom. It's so pretty. And I love wearing purple to tournament weekends. I have like an eggplant purple dress. I also have like a multicolored purple dress. And it was perfect because I fit in with the room. So that gave me kind of like an extra boost of confidence when I was competing. And yeah, it was a super, like, credit to you, Phil. It was a super well-run tournament. I was happy with all the rooms that we were in, and it was just super comfortable.
Checks in the mail. So we named the witnesses for the next year's case after the 4 advocates who win awards at the previous year's Battle of the Experts. So is there a particular type of witness you'd like for me to write you as, like an expert or maybe like a CEO who does something really bad, or do you want to be a crier? Tell me what you want.
Well, if it's like a criminal case, I would love to be like the defendant.
USV Gaskins.
Yeah. Or a CEO sounds nice. Something like a boss lady CEO. That would be cool too. Maybe not like an eyewitness though.
Noted. So you were in your second year of competing on UCLA's trial team. And this is your second competition, right? The one that you just had?
Yes.
So what is one thing that you like more about law school mock trial than AMTA? And what's one thing that you like more about AMTA than law school mock trial?
2 things come to mind. The first is it seems like judging in law school mock trial is a little bit more consistent. Like you're seeing sweeps way more often than you would in college. Like you could have a college round and be like, yeah, like we tore them up, and have like, I don't know, like a 3-3 split or something. But our results are tending to be like more reflective of the round itself. So I really appreciate that. It's less guesswork and less like really upsetting after round debriefs.
I have a theory for why that is, but I'm curious why you think it is.
I honestly don't know, because I don't know that the judges are like any different, like the people wise or like qualifications wise. What do you think? I don't know.
Yeah, so I think we could probably figure this out statistically. But my hypothesis would be that the witness scores tend to be polarizing one way or the other. So
yeah,
you could find a witness portrayal that's very over the top that some judges will love and some will hate. I think I've said this on the show a bunch of times. I hate the over the top witness stuff. It just drives me. I don't think it's good at all. And some people love that. And I get why teams do it. I don't fault any team that does it because you sort of have to do that to win. You have to play the game. But I wonder if that's the reason why the scores tend to be all over the place, because there's some disagreement on what makes a good witness. That would be my guess.
I think that that's probably exactly right. Now that you say that, because when I've judged, like, I'm the same way. Like, if I don't like the witness, I'll score it accurately of what I really think the witness got. And so, like, even if the attorneys were great, like, your witness is going to bring your team down for sure.
A lot of the law school coaches and directors, will often say, "Oh, that's a college idea. We don't want to be like college mock trial. College mock trial is not nearly as good as what we do." But I think there are lots of things that AMTA does and that college teams do that are just better. Is there one thing that AMTA does that law school doesn't do that you wish were more prevalent on the law school circuit?
I don't know. Cause like, I was pretty sheltered, like in terms of like being a competitor, like my coach in college, like handled like so much, like everything that was like kind of behind the scenes, like he was very privy to, and like I wasn't at all. But I'm curious as to what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things that I think are better about AMTA that I wish the law school circuit would adopt. The first is AMTA is run by a sort of board of directors who are coaches and people who run the team. So things, I think that sort of makes the rules and the sort of constraints in the cases better year to year, because it's people that are in the trenches. Whereas in law school, the tournaments are run by schools, but the big ones in the spring are run by entities that are not law schools or coaches or directors. That's the sort of big one. The other one is, I think, in the way that the tournaments are run, and there's nothing sort of bad about the way law school tournaments are run, but I tend to be a little bit of a conspiracy theorist when it comes to tournament administration, and everything in college mock trial is very out in the open. I mean, I remember, I'm sure you can relate to this, like at nationals, like walking into the tab room and like hovering over the table where they were doing the pairings.
Yeah.
That would never happen in law school. Like that was that you don't there. I don't even think there is a tab room in law school at most events.
No.
So at Battle of the Experts, I try to sort of mimic what happens at college tournaments. I want everything to be very sort of out in the open, and you can see all the ballots and that sort of thing. But that doesn't really happen much in law school. And I don't think there's anything nefarious going on. I was sort of kidding when I said conspiracy theorist, but I just think it's not the way it's done. And I think there's an inherent trust amongst all the coaches that things are being done correctly. But my argument to that is we're all human and we make mistakes, and sometimes things aren't done correctly. And having that sort of oversight, I think, keeps us all honest. And I wish things were done like that more on the law school level.
Yeah, I mean, now that you say that, it's probably because my first tournament was on Zoom, and then my second tournament was run by you. So it's like, it seems like, very AMTA like. But I will say, like, the first tournament that I went to, it seemed like there was a lot of criticism of like the case packet. So I think like law school could be a bit more consistent with like rules, like what is allowed in terms of invention and stuff like that. So people come into these tournaments and always have like a lot of protests because nobody knows exactly like what's going on.
And the rules tend to differ from tournament to tournament. So that can make things a little confusing.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think there's just a different standard in terms of, you mentioned case balance. I mean, the law school circuit is ecstatic if a case is 58-42 in favor of one side, whereas that would never fly in AMTA. And I think there's lots of movement towards a lot of the things that are good about AMTA, but to the law school circuit's credit, there's lots of things that I hate about AMTA that the law school circuit does better. I already talked about the witnesses thing. I also think, and I'm curious to know what you think about this, I think the law school teams tend to be a little bit more substantive and true to life than the AMTA teams. There's things that we did as college competitors that I look back now and I'm like, that would never happen in real life. That was bizarre. I can't believe someone let us say that. I tend to like that better about law school too.
I think for me, the biggest difference has been the witnesses, because like in law school, the witnesses are not supposed to be dramatic. They're not supposed to be funny. They're not supposed to be cute. Like, so that's been a big difference. But like, I would almost think, and maybe I need to like watch my old film back or something, but like after being coached by Justin, I would say that I may be even more like dynamic and like over the top than I used to be. Like in this round, I'm like, he's encouraging me to like do like the reach all the way up here. And like, I just never even thought to do something so like mimey or like what I think is dramatic in college. So I don't know, maybe that's just me. I mean, definitely the people that we go up against are more like normal. And also like, it feels a bit more real in terms of the arguments we're making. Like, it's hard to explain, but
I think it's more true to life in substance than performance is what I would say. Like if you read a college round on a transcript versus a law school round, it looks a lot different.
yeah.
I think that's the biggest difference. But it's interesting what you say about performance and working with Justin. Justin Bernstein, the director of trial at UCLA, as many watching this know. What's it been like working with Justin?
I've been getting so much better. Like I started being like coached by him over this summer, and just like 2 sessions in, I'm like already like learning so much. And I'm like, how did I not know this before? Just like things that he's saying that seem to be common sense. Like he's reteaching us like cross and direct and stuff like that. And like showing us examples of what it should look like. And I'm like, it's just clicks. He's such a good teacher too. Cause I also have him like for trial ad class. And he just has a way about him that like so easy to understand and so easy to get. And like, I've just seen like a complete difference in my performance from like when I was in college, when I was in law school. Like I am so much better at what I do.
Yeah, I think you describe it perfectly. I think a lot of people who watch his teams and see the success he had as a college coach, but also now as the director at UCLA, I think even crazier success, which is hard to believe. I think he's doing something that's magic, or he has some secret, and it's not really a secret. As someone who worked with him pretty extensively, it's just, I just think he's doing all the stuff that we're all trying to do, but better. Is that your assessment as well?
I agree. And also simpler. Like it's just like as simple as that. Like for example, my closing in Battle of the Experts, I would argue like it's a 15-minute closing, right? But I would argue it was less words than my 8-minute closings in college. Like it's so simple. Like I was shocked at one of my like 3 points. I had 2 sentences. It's undisputed. Maximum speed's 45 miles per hour. And I'm moving on to my next point. I think like we tended in college to overthink and overcomplicate and put too many words and too many arguments. And like, Justin's like, fuck all that. Like, let's just like get down to our bare bones facts. It's funny because then it just works. And we add performance to the bare bones, like facts and arguments. And then we're the best team at the tournament.
That is the most concise and accurate way of describing a Justin Bernstein coach team I've ever heard. And I've heard lots of people try to describe it. It's better than I could have ever said it. And I think that is exactly right. So on the show, one of the things that I like to do with guests is ask them who the greatest competitor of all time is. And the names that come up, and you're already smiling and looking around, Sid. I think you're one of the people that come up in that sentence all the time. With Ben Wallace's and Ian Lampert's and Dan Stearns and that crew of people. They're coaches that I respect on the amateur circuit who, if I ask them who's the best competitor ever, they'll say you. How does that make you feel?
I guess honored. It's funny. It's like, I also feel like deserving too, because like I did work stupid hard, like for everything that I earned in college, the awards, and like now in law school, like I put work into Battle of the Experts. And so like when we do win these things and like you see the accolades, you see the trophies and stuff like that, there's so much work that goes behind it. So like I like to hear it for sure, because it's like a recognition of how hard and like how much like blood, sweat, and tears I have put into this little activity. And also like when I first started out, like the main people in those conversations were white men. when I would talk to my teammates about who do you like, who are they fiending over, like, who's their crush? And it's always like, men. And so I really like that I can be able to be somebody else to look to, somebody who looks different, talks different, and like has a different style to also represent and be able to hopefully, if people want to watch my film or something, like learn from as well, in addition to them.
You think that puts a little bit of pressure on you as a law school competitor? Do you ever think about the expectations being sort of high for the next couple of years? And how does that make you feel when you're going into a weekend like the one you just had, where you won, and the word that you use to describe it is relief? And that's not what most people would feel when they win something. They'd be overjoyed or, happy. But it sounds like you're like, okay, I did what I was supposed to do. That's done. On to the next one. Is that really tough for you?
Yeah. I think that it's not even the expectation that comes from like me as a competitor anymore. I'm actually really happy that I don't have that following me, because like people in the law school circuit do not know anything about like college. These are all new people. So I actually love that. I love going in, having judges who have never seen me before, have no idea who I am, and then can, like appreciate the performance that I put on without any preconceived notions. I love that. UCLA is where that pressure comes from, because UCLA wins. Like, I came into this program, like it's already established. In college, I kind of like helped build my program to what it eventually was. And I got used to losing. I lost a lot. Like, but I think coming into UCLA, like knowing like this is a champions team. Like, I went into battle knowing that my coaches wanted to win, the program wants us to win, and that it kind of felt to me like anything other than that wasn't good enough. And that's hard, I think, to have that pressure. And I think the team does do a good job of trying to like relieve that pressure. I did talk to Catherine, and she made me feel a lot better, because Catherine's one of our presidents. So like coming from her, I was like, I'm feeling that pressure right now. And she's like, we don't have to win. And I'm like, thank you for just giving me that reassurance that like, if we don't, it's okay. If we do, it's great. And that's the mindset that I want this like team to have. And that I hope that they have, but at the same time, we're also competitive. So it's a super hard balance to find, I think, in this program in particular. And I'm still trying to figure it out. Still trying to find out, how I can fit in here.
So we're going to watch your cross-examination from the tournament that you won at Drexel a couple of weeks ago. Why don't you tell the people at home who didn't watch the final round what the case was about?
The case, what was it about, Phil? It was about, hold on.
It really does go out of your head like immediately, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh.
So there was a theme park.
Oh, a 17-year-old girl fell out of a roller coaster in an upside down loop. Her lap bar came up and she fell out. Plaintiff says it's because the product was a design defect. We said it was being run too fast. And the defense said that she assumed the risk and she pressed a button on the side of her roller coaster car to release her own lap bar.
So we're going to watch your cross-examination of the CEO of that evil theme park.
Okay.
Good morning, Ms. Watson. Morning. Let's start by talking about your decision to increase the speed of your ride. Yes, ma'am. Your Honor, may I approach the witness with what's already in evidence as Exhibit 23?
Yes.
You never know if the witness is going to respond to you when you say like, good morning, or like, let's talk about the speed of your ride. I just like, and then I'm like, is she going to respond? Is she going to say something?
Or they'll just be like, okay, like really loud into the microphone.
But then you risk cutting them off. I hate it. I hate that part of it.
Yeah, it's one of the things, like going back to the conversation we had about AMTA, that like, that's like part of the gamesmanship of AMTA witnesses. And I like hate that. Like, it's just so lame. But yeah, I don't tell our witnesses at Drexel do that. I've seen UCLA witnesses. I don't think they do that. But yeah, one of the things that you never know.
23 is the email.
I would like that, please. Thank you.
These are emails between you and your internal engineer, right?
Yes, ma'am, Mr. Jared Hatcliffe.
In these emails, you're talking about the speed of Hydra's wrath, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Let's start at the bottom of this email chain.
Objection, Your Honor.
Yes.
These emails actually go into the background of the same background that opposing counsel objected to earlier about the pandemic. Just want to make sure that we're being consistent.
Well, are you objecting to the admissibility of anything in these emails?
Yes, relevance.
Okay, what specifically?
The first email goes into our rides are getting stale. You've ridden them once, you've ridden them 100 times. I want to give riders a reason to come back to the park, going to his motive.
So we're about 2 weeks since Battle of the Experts. Have you watched this back yet, or is this the first time you're watching this?
No, I'm watching this back and for the first time, and I'm holding my tongue right now.
Why?
You guys cannot object to something that's already in evidence.
Yeah, so this document was already in, and Judge Jim Waldenberger, who's a partner in my law firm, was being very nice. But I will also say that the competitor who is making the objection right now is a first tournament ever competitor at Stetson Law, which is
Way.
crazy. And she's going up against you, someone we just talked about who's in the greatest of all time conversation. Like, welcome to law school, welcome to mock trial. You have to go up against Sydney. So she really held her own in this round. I was impressed.
Sure, yeah.
Motivation to increase the speed, to increase riders.
May I respond?
Yes.
Your Honor, these emails are already in evidence, but even so, we're not concerned with those portions and we'd happily redact them.
So you're not going to go into that with this witness anyway.
No.
Okay by you?
Yes, Your Honor.
Looks like we're good. You may continue.
Why
Let's
is
start at the
Peter
bottom of this
nodding?
email.
Is that your Peter?
Yeah.
Because
Get poker face together.
he is, I like getting to know him over the weekend. I'd never met him. I just heard Justin talk about him. He's like so intense and so fun, like so funny with how intense he is and how like much he wants to win. And yeah, he badly wanted to win this round. I mean, you all did, but like I especially felt it from Peter.
Oh yeah, Peter's so competitive. Yeah.
I'll watch that head nod back.
Okay by you?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may continue.
Let's start at the bottom of this email chain.
Oh my
This would be
God.
the first email that you sent your internal engineer, right?
Yes, I sent the first email on May 25th.
The subject line of that email is increased speed on Hydra's wrath, right?
That's correct.
Now your ride originally ran at 35 miles per hour, didn't it?
Yes, that is correct.
In this email, you tell your engineer, let's bump it up to 50.
So in our Drexel chat during this round of the semifinal round, we were just all texting each other, bump it up to 50. Every time you said it, it made us laugh. We could tell you liked saying that line.
I do.
Yeah, let's watch that one back too. We're just like, bump it up to 50.
Email, you tell your engineer, let's bump it up to 50.
Bump it up.
Yes, I asked if that is something that we could possibly do.
You said all you have to do is turn up the speed on the control panel.
So
Yes.
that was a really good gesture. Like turn up the speed and you're like sort of turning the speed up with your hand or your finger. Is that something you practiced?
No, that's something I copied from Peter in his opening.
Ah, interesting. Well, people should watch Peter's opening on YouTube. It's very, very good in this round.
You increase the speed on the ride.
Your Honor, may I
Yes.
approach? It was my understanding that this first email was redacted.
May I respond?
Yes,
Only the portions dealing with the motivation of this witness were redacted.
that's what I understood.
Okay.
We on the same page?
Yes, now we are.
Do you have any objections to anything else? So
No,
good?
Your Honor.
Okay, you may proceed.
When you told your engineer, let's bump it up to 50, the first thing he said to you was, Alex, not sure about that.
It's great delivery.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
Had you guys practiced that at all? Or was this something where you just kind of got it from the beginning and Justin was sort of like, do that?
I think a lot of the ways that like I deliver the questions, I think it's my personality. That's like where my personality comes out. So I think working on the cross, like writing the questions, I think Justin helped. But like when it came to the delivery, usually I would just kind of a little intuitive almost, like how I want to say a certain thing.
It's really natural, like that and the bump it up line, the way you delivered it just sort of brought it to life. It's funny, like because I wrote the case. So from a case writer's perspective, I can just picture me on like a Monday at 2:30, just like making an exhibit, not really thinking that hard about
Mhm.
the choice of words, like bump it up.
Yeah.
And hearing someone say it and like bring it to life it was really cool. And no one really used that email the way that you did in this process. It was really good.
Oh, okay.
No, I shouldn't say they didn't know. Obviously, they used the email because the email. I mean, of course,
Yeah,
they
I was
did,
like,
but
dang, they didn't use the
but
email.
they didn't perform it with the sort of intensity and like bringing the words to life in the same way that you did. It was the best part of the cross, I thought. One of the best parts. We're going to see some really good parts in a second.
Because Hydra's wrap wasn't designed with that speed in mind.
Yes, that is correct.
Your engineer was concerned about how that increase.
I
in
messed up
speed
here.
Would affect the restraint.
Yeah, so I was sitting next to the judge. I caught that too. What did you mess up?
I should obviously say, like, the person who said it wasn't designed for that speed is the person who designed the ride immediately after I asked that question, but I forgot.
Right.
I asked the next question. I think I was making decisions in my head. I was like, do I go back? Do I let it go? I actually don't remember what I did.
Well, you didn't let it show. You didn't let it show. That's for sure.
Yes, that is correct. He was concerned about the restraint system and also making the ride smooth. That's why I suggested that we run the tests so that we could talk about it more and actually see the ride in action at the increased speed.
But redirecting you back to my question, your engineer was concerned about how that increased speed would affect the restraint system, right?
That is correct.
Ma'am, the person who said Hydra's wrap wasn't designed with that speed in mind, that's the man who designed the ride, right?
He helped design and build the ride. Yes.
And that restraint system, those are those lap bars, right?
Yes, the hydraulic lap bars.
Let's talk about whether you made sure it was safe to increase the speed of your ride. You said
You do such a good job of engaging with the jury on cross. Like the whole time you're sort of performing to the jury, which again is one of those things that you hear people talk about all the time, give the cross like a closing. But is that something you had to practice, or is it just something you're naturally sort of, it feels more intuitive to you to sort of deliver the cross to the jury like a closing?
I think because I'm a closer, I think that it was just what I knew. So I don't really think I'm looking at her much at all.
No, it's like she's not even there.
He turned to the jury and like making eye contact with them the whole time. I don't know if that's right.
Why do you say that?
Well, I feel like maybe I should look at her a little bit more.
Maybe. My guess is the scoring judges were just so engaged with the cross that they sort of didn't care. But you're one of the competitors that can probably get away with that because they're just enjoying it so much. I thought it worked in this cross.
direct examination that you tested it at this increased speed, right?
Yes, we did. We conducted 4 tests at the increased speed.
Well, we'll get to that, but first, you tested it at 50 miles per hour, right?
That is correct.
Your ride has 14 individual seats on it, right?
That's a great use of space there.
Thank you.
Was that something you'd rehearsed, or was that something that you sort of, how did that 14 individual seats on the car and stepping backwards in the well thing come to be?
We had like an extended conversation about this when we were practicing in our courtroom at UCLA, because I would do that motion. And then Justin would tell me that we can't find her seat. Like Justin's very particular about like the movements themselves. Like he wants them to actually be like accurate.
Right.
I wasn't used to. So I feel like in that moment, I was just doing my best to like implement accuracy and like, I guess it would be like 7 rows. I don't know if I actually did 7 rows, but I was trying to, and I was trying to be cognizant of actually helping the jury visualize that car. But I don't think that's something that I would have thought of in college without like our Justin and Disha just encouraging us to like do these movements that I didn't even know were like allowed in the courtroom.
It's one of the things that I've adopted as a coach. Like he would say to me when I was a competitor, we'll be practicing like a speech, and he'll be like, okay, the story's in a kitchen. Show me where the
Right.
coffee
I'm like,
mug is. I'm like, I don't know, on the table. He's like, no, show me where the coffee mug is. Point to it. I'm like, it's right there. I was like, okay, that's where the coffee mug is for the entire trial, or for the entire speech at least. And it's that level of detail that I think brings the performance to life. And it definitely did in that moment on the cross. It was really good.
Yeah, and it's also like something I was nervous about, to be moving so much with like these gestures that we would come up with, like the car and the lap bar and the 150 feet, because I had gotten critiques before that I'm moving too much or like my movement is distracting. So it's like hard to know how it's going to come across, but thank goodness it came across well when it mattered.
Yeah. I mean, I guess to push back on that idea, like everything you're doing in this cross is purposeful. There's nothing that you're going to watch, you're going to see Sydney doing this cross that is not intentional, or at least looks intentional, even if it maybe wasn't actually intentional, but like it looks like there's a purpose for it. So like the pushing the button, the holding the exhibit up, the 14 rows back, like all of it is for a reason. And I think that when things are done for no reason, that's what annoys judges.
Yeah.
That is correct. 7 cars, 2 seats per car.
7 cars, 2 seats per car. That means 14 individual lap bars, right?
That is correct.
When you ran that testing, you didn't put crash dummies in all 14 of those seats, did you?
No, ma'am. Our engineer, Mr. Hackliff himself, sat in the ride.
So you didn't put crash dummies in all 14 of those seats, did you?
No, that's correct.
You didn't ask your employees to fill up all 14 of those seats, did you?
That's correct.
You didn't ask your engineer to sit in each one of those 14 seats, did you?
That's correct.
Under each one of those 14 lap bars, did you?
We didn't ask him to sit in each seat with the lap bars down.
What happened there? Was that like what was that question? Did you sort of forget your place?
I know, I made a face. I was like, what? The question did make sense.
Let's watch it back.
If you pair it with the question before it, but I think there was too much space in between that. I think it was forgotten.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Under each one of those 14 lap bars,
Yeah.
did you?
I see. It's from the question before. I see.
It was definitely confusing. She was definitely confused.
Yeah.
Down. He just sat in a seat 4 times.
You didn't ask him to sit in each one of those seats with the lap bars in, right?
That's correct.
You had him sitting in one seat, right?
We had him seated in the Hydra's wrap. I do not remember which seat or how many seats he sat in.
This is taking too long. This
That is
section
well-
should not be this long.
Why do you think that is? Is it the content, or do you think it's just the witnesses being chatty, or what do you think?
I think that right here was where I kind of started to like, I was starting to feel it out. Like I was starting to feel her out. I was starting to notice like she's explaining a lot, which is fine. How am I going to like get what I need out of this cross? And I feel like I'm interested to see what I do with the rest of the cross, because I want to see if I adapted to what she like, how she was responding to me at all. But I think here I just got probably a little caught in the weeds, trying to like figure out like when to move on, when to get my yes. So, but this was like the first time that it got kind of like,
Okay, let's
slow.
break down what you just said. You said you don't remember what seat he sat in?
No, I do not.
So you don't even know if he sat in the seat that Miss Topping later sat in. Isn't that true?
That's correct.
You don't remember what seat he sat in. So he only sat in one seat, right?
I do not remember if he only sat in one seat or if he changed seats during the other tests that we conducted.
So you don't remember if he only tested just one lap bar. Isn't that true?
That's true. I know that he was there on the ride with the lap seat restraint down at 50 miles per hour. I do not remember which seat number he was on. I do not remember if he changed seats during the tests. However, I do know that he was on the ride while we ran it at the increased speed.
Well, let's talk about what those tests look like.
He did a
I'm
good,
glad
I moved on. I'm glad I moved on. I'm
did a
glad
good
I
job. Yeah. I'm just getting out of there.
I was like, I feel like if like kind of watching this back, like as probably like more of like a someone judging myself, I needed to move on. Like, and I was like, please move on, ma'am. And I did. So I'm very happy I did, because nobody wanted to see that again.
Yeah, I'll say two things. The first is I have to give a shout out to the witness. That's Allison Stevens. She is a former competitor from Furman. She's a former coach at Furman, and she's now a first-year law student at Drexel, one of our courtroom scholars. I'm excited to work with her as a competitor next year. The other thing is, one of the things that I think makes you so good, Sydney, is that you are more critical of yourself than any sort of superstar competitor I've ever been around, that I've talked to at least. And I think that's probably why you've been so successful over the last couple of years. Do you think that's sort of helped in never settling, resting on your laurels and trying to get better and being harsh on yourself? Or do you think that's been hard because nothing ever feels sort of good enough?
I think like I'm able to be proud of myself when I do a good job. So I'm happy with kind of the way that I can process rounds. Like all in all, I think that was like the cross, I did a good job. Like I sat down after that cross and I was like, okay, I did a good job, like moving on. But I can also like think back, look back, and like know, I do think like I've been doing this for like 7-8 years now. So I kind of know what's good and I know what's bad. And I know what I did that was bad. And I think when I do give myself like harsh criticism, when I do watch myself and I'm like, oh, that was ass, I'll make the change. I do not stick to old habits. Like, and if one, I think like some judges' comments, like whatever, like let them go. But sometimes when you like hear something over and over again, like, you know, it's something that you need to continuously like work on to make yourself more likable. I think being likable is the name of the game here. And so I've worked super hard to make myself be myself, but also be like a likable, strong, strategic attorney.
What's the most common criticism that you've gotten from judges over the years?
The most common, probably about the movement, or I think a lot of like, I don't want to give a lot of credit to this one, but I do get a lot of like sus criticisms.
That's more or less what I was getting at. My guess is there's a lot of that.
Yeah, there's a ton. There's been a ton of like microaggressions, like calling me aggressive, or like when there's like an attorney on the other side who was just as like assertive with the witness, but like I was too much or something. And I think like there are times when like people can be like too rough with a witness. But I don't think that a lot of the criticism was warranted. And I just think it's very curious as to why I'll get the criticism, but co-counsel on the other side won't get the criticism when they do similar things. I also I think something I have to struggle with, and I know like other people of color may like relate to this, is like judges like to see in competitors their younger selves.
Yeah.
You're gonna love the competitor who reminds you of you when you were younger. And I don't get that like privilege a lot. So when I'm competing against somebody who may have that privilege, I have to work even harder, like to be the best attorney in the room. And so I try to make the margin as big as possible between like how hard I'll work and how hard I'll think everybody else is working. I know everybody works hard, but I'm gonna work harder just to make sure when I get in that round, like I know the case through and through. I know my arguments. I know my cross. I don't just know the words in my cross. The cross is inside of me. The cross is living and breathing. I don't think about my next part. I learned the cross so deeply that I'm not thinking about my next question. I can free myself from a script and just do the actual trial. And that's the most important thing to me, I think, at this point in competing is like, can I be in pre-trial and listen to what the judge says to me, or am I going to be thinking about what I'm going to say on direct? Like, you know what I mean? So,
I have so many follow-ups on that. And I'm going to try to do them quickly. The first is more of a comment than a follow-up. I love in comments when judges are like, well, if the witness said that to me, I would have blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, you wouldn't have. No, you wouldn't have. You would not have had the skill to do that. There's like, I love when people are like, you need to read the jury. And if you see, you need to look at the jury and like adjust your, like, there's literally no way that you are looking at the jury and changing your theory on the fly because of some facial expression the lady in the back made. Like, there's just no way.
yeah.
And that irritates me to no end when judges are like, I would have done this. Like, you wouldn't have. You just wouldn't have. So no. My next follow-up was a more serious follow-up. That was more of a rant. So I would guess it's obviously, I think, you know, it's difficult for a competitor like me to understand because I like you said, I didn't really get those comments as a competitor. I just didn't. And you know, for lots of reasons, like to use your words, are sus for sure. But I imagine it's difficult to sort of get those comments and sort of separate like, okay, I think that this is coming from a place that's disingenuous, but also like, are they right? Like, what can I do to address it? And even if it is coming from a place that's disingenuous, like ultimately I want to win. So like, what should I do to get around that? How do you think about that? I would guess that's really hard.
It is so hard. And like, there were points in college where I had like a really bad tournament one time. And I thought I got some unfair comments like that, unfair judging. And it like broke me. Like, it was right before winter break. And then over winter break, I was just like devastated for weeks because it was a buildup too. It's like, this will always happen to me, like for years. And so it reached the point where I was just like, no matter what I do, no matter how hard I work, no matter how prepared I am, no matter how I, get my points out or the cross I do or the closing, or at the end of the round, what the judges are going to tell me feedback on 3 hours in, it's not going to be about my preparation. It's not going to be about, you're talented, good work. It's going to be like the first thing out of their mouth is like it tells me they hate me. I hated when that happened. It just hurt. It hurt bad. And so, like you said, like I had to just do some deep dives into like, how do I respond to this emotionally, like in my performance? Like, how can I prevent judges from disliking me? Like, do I keep doing this? Is this even for me? If this is what it's going to be like, if I'm involved in something that requires judging based on the way that I look. Well, I was just like, okay, I'm going to keep trying. And I think I've gotten to a point now where like, it's always going to hurt. Like, but I just try to get better in the ways that I know how. And I am never going to water myself down, take my personality out of the equation and be somebody I am not. I am never going to be the meek, soft-spoken attorney who's easy to watch and like who's gentle. No one will ever say that I was gentle on a witness, like unless it's like a victim or something. Like maybe I'll
even those witnesses had it coming. So
yeah, I mean, like maybe I'll do a gentle attack, but
right.
I just won't do it. And like, if that means that I'm gonna get judges who hate me, so be it. Like, I know at the end of the day, like there are people who do care about me, who can give me reassurance that, I am doing good work here. So I just try to like handle it emotionally almost, and then just continue working on the little aspects that I know are valid where I need to get better.
That was a very long tangent by me. So I'll get us back on the roller coaster tracks here.
4 times during those tests, correct?
That is correct.
It takes about a minute to go around the track.
About, yes.
but no longer than a minute, true?
True.
So 4 times around the track, 1 minute each time, you ran your roller coaster for 4 minutes?
That's correct.
After you ran your roller coaster for 4 minutes, a month went by before you let passengers on it.
That's correct.
In that month, you didn't ask your engineer to sit in all 14 of those seats, did you?
No, we had already conducted our 4 tests.
Said you already
I think if
conducted
I
your
went
4
back and
tests.
redid this, I would have ended on the 4 minutes and moved on to my next section. Yeah,
You mean because it went so well?
I think yeah, and she ended on a yes. And then I feel like since the first part of this went a little bit long, I feel like I could have just moved on and got to my next section.
Yeah, like take your 10 and sit down. Like you can't get an 11. Not on this ballot, at least.
You never asked him to test it again?
No, I did not.
Let's talk about your decision to put a button on the side of your roller coaster. Ma'am, your roller coaster goes 150 feet high, doesn't it?
That's the gesture that we've been talking about so much. It looks great. And that was something you guys worked on in practice?
I think that it actually came to life during the tournament weekend. I think in practice, I think I was just doing like this or something. And then I think I just fully committed. And then I'm extending all the way up.
It goes 150 feet high.
The next one that you're about to do upside down I thought was even better. I won't spoil it for the watchers
Doesn't it?
Or for me.
That's correct.
or for you.
It goes upside down, doesn't it?
Multiple times.
It goes upside down multiple times. 150 feet high, doesn't it, ma'am?
It does.
When someone is 150 feet in the air, the only thing keeping them in place is their lap bar. Isn't that true?
That is correct.
When they're upside down on your roller coaster, the only thing keeping them in place is that lap bar.
That is correct.
And this is sort of to the point that you were making earlier about simplicity. When I heard that question live, I can sort of see it on the page.
Yeah.
And if you think about the words just for a second, this is sort of like a philosophical, we're getting into the weeds here a little bit, but when the 2 questions were, when a roller coaster, whatever, the only thing keeping you in place is the lap bar. When the roller coaster goes upside down, the only thing people think keeping you in place is the lap bar. 2 really simple questions, not a lot of thought into those questions, just very normal questions.
Yeah.
But the way you perform them, it feels so important. Those 2 questions, and they're so common sense. And I think that's just what you said an hour ago now, which is simple questions, simple material, performed really well. That is it, what you just did.
Yeah. I like the tone shift that I'm doing here.
Yeah.
So it's different from what I was doing in the first 2 sections noticeably.
On the side of your roller coaster that would release that lap bar?
Yes, ma'am, we did. By regulation, we had to have a release bar on the carts for individual passengers for safety reasons. If there was a malfunction, we had to make sure that guests could release themselves.
Redirecting you back to my question. You put a button on the side of your roller coaster that would release the lap bar, right?
That is correct.
You told us a moment ago that this is required by regulation. You need it, right?
That is correct.
There is no regulation requiring you to put that button within reach of your passengers, right?
There's no regulation saying where you can or cannot place a button, just that it had to be on the cart somewhere.
Right, ma'am. There's no regulation saying where you can or can't put that button.
Good
So there's
listening.
no regulation requiring you to put it within reach of your passengers. Isn't that true?
That is correct.
There's also no regulation that says it works when the ride is moving, right?
This was new.
So
This was a great point that I'd not seen made all weekend. It was one of those moments where I was like, I probably should have addressed this in the case. This is almost too good of a point that you're about to make here.
this was completely unwritten, completely on the fly. We had just talked about it the night before. And I committed to it, and we'll see how it.
Really effective, I thought.
No regulation that while the control panel is on and operating, that the individual release button also has to be on and operating.
Man, let's break that down.
Yeah.
Your button works at any point during the ride, doesn't it?
Yes, that is correct.
It works when it's stopped.
Yes, that is correct.
It works when it's moving, right?
That is correct.
You didn't make it so that that button only works when it's stopped, right?
Damn!
You like that? You were impressed with that question. It was good, right?
That was so, I'm so proud of myself because that was complete, none of that was written. Like, and the delivery too, just like, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
broke it down to begin with, but like, I think once I heard that question, once I heard a response, I was like, let's just do this. And I did it and it worked.
So
So
good. It was, actually forgot how good that was now, because this is the first time I'm watching it back too. That was, I mean, it sort of felt like the round was over after this cross. And I think particularly in that moment, it felt like the round was over. So yeah, it was a room shaker for sure. It gave me the Listerine face, like the face when you have Listerine, you're like, that's what it felt like.
That is correct.
This ride is available to kids, isn't it?
ooh,
It is available to kids who are above a certain height. So not all kids can ride the ride. There is a height limitation, but if there was a minor who met that height requirement, then yes, they would be able to ride the ride.
It's available to
I give Allison credit for like this cross is tough. And I give her credit for just like talking around all this. Like lots of credit, lots of credit.
kids.
She has to sit up there and answer these ridiculous questions. like no excuse for any of this. And she's just
I know.
Let's get back to the speed of your ride. Before July 6th, your ride always ran at 35 miles per hour, didn't it?
That is correct.
It ran at 35 miles per hour for 6 months, didn't it?
A little under 6 months. Yes,
A little under 6 months, it ran at 35 miles per hour all day, didn't it?
that is correct.
Every single day, didn't it?
Yes, during our hours of operation.
During those almost 6 months when it ran at 35 miles per hour, a lap bar never came up in the middle of the ride, did it?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance. The plaintiff have alleged that this ride became defective when the speed was increased to 50 miles an hour, the ride running at 35 months prior.
I'm not sure what she was thinking with that objection, but I'm not sure that this was her reasoning, but maybe she just felt like this is getting too good and something needs to happen.
I mean, there is strategy to objecting for sure.
Yeah, I'm not big into like objecting just for the sake of it. But this was a point in time where it may have helped a little bit to sort of break this up.
Yeah.
Is not relevant here.
Yeah, why does it matter that there was never a problem 35 miles?
That goes exactly to our point, Your Honor, that the second they bumped it up to 50 miles per hour, this ride became defective, that the speed was the defect.
Bump it up to
The fact
50.
that it never had an issue at 35 miles per hour means it was safe at 35 miles per hour and defective at 50.
What do you say to that?
Your Honor, it has already been established that the ride was running at 35 miles an hour and then speed increased to 50.
It's cross-exam, this is proper, objection overruled.
At 35 miles per hour, a lap bar never came up, did it?
That's correct.
At 35 miles per hour, nobody got hurt on your ride.
That's correct.
July 6th was the first day that, in your own words, you bumped it up to 50, right?
Gotta say it as
Yes.
many times.
There it is.
We realized it's the first day that the ride ran at 50 miles per hour.
The first day that your ride ran at 50 miles an hour, a lap bar came up, didn't it?
That was the first day that one of our cars had their lap bars released. Yes.
The first day your ride ran at 50 miles an hour, Miss Topping died.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
I could have went a little lower. It was good, but I could have went a little lower.
Yeah, I like when I'm practicing like loud and soft with my students, I'm like whisper, like we can hear you. It's all good. Everyone can hear you. Like no one was talking. So I agree, but I still thought it was very effective with the sort of change in volume in the last couple of questions.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Watching it back, first time, better than you remember, worse than you remember, about what you remember?
It was, I don't want to, let me not be too critical of myself. It was good. It was a good cross. I actually really liked her pushback. I liked her pushback because it gave me an opportunity to get off like script. It gave me an opportunity, I think, to showcase like my other skills besides like performance. Like, can I respond to the witness, what the witness is saying? Can I respond to my own mistakes, like as I go throughout like the cross and make up for them, which I thought I did well. Like I asked a crap question, but I fixed it. And yeah, like, and she wasn't unlikable. That's the thing too, is like, she was a very sweet on direct, which I noticed when I was watching her. And so I was like, you know, she's not the type of fighty witness that I can just like bulldoze. Like it forced me to like balance, you know, using control, doing what I want to do, but also like not looking like an asshole, beating up on her and stuff like that. So she was great, I think, to give me a challenge too. Like just having a witness that's going to say yes to all your questions is not usually like the best crosses. It's usually when there's some sort of back and forth, and you're seeing a battle.
So you're a year into your law school career. You've got a couple of semesters left for mock trial competing forever. What's left for you to accomplish? What is on your sort of to-do list in terms of your goals?
Well, really, I just want to do my best. That's probably not as climactic as you were expecting, but
What's
like,
what's the real answer, Sydney?
no, that is the real answer. It really is, because I cannot like put a ton of pressure on myself. Like I'm going to go to these tournaments and I'm going to do my best. And like, that's going to be enough for me, because I can't like equate my worth to winning. I just can't do it. Like I had a lot of trouble with that in college. It beat me down, broke me down. So I just try to get back to why I do this in the first place, and why I got into mock trial in the first place is because it's fun. And it's because I love it. And it's because I like to be around my teammates and like, and it's something that I am okay at, you know, I'm pretty good at it. So it's something I really enjoy. And I think that when I put too much pressure on myself on winning or like a certain competition, I lose that. And of course, it would be lovely to keep winning, but really I'm just going to keep trying to get better, keep trying my best, keep putting my all into it and having fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good attitude to have. When I was a competitor, like jokes aside, I did not get many good night's sleeps for those couple of years because I mean, not to the degree that you have, but I had a lot of pressure to do well at these events, particularly Top Gun. I mean, that last year, I was very nervous going into Top Gun. I mean, it sort of felt like if I don't win, I don't know what I'm going to do. And luckily it worked out for me, but it would have been devastating. And I think I would imagine that feeling is times 100 for you guys at UCLA who had much bigger college careers than I had. And or at UCLA where, like you said, it's just such a winning culture there right now. So I think it's great that you can have this sort of self-control to have that attitude. I'm sure there are times where you slip up a little bit and put unfair pressure on yourself, but you've just had such a good start. And it's great that you have that attitude going forward.
Yeah, I am naturally like so competitive is the problem and why I had to adopt that attitude in the first place. But like Top Gun, I really don't know how you did it. Like, because, my experience with combat, it's just being just you in the round is a whole other type of pressure. Like I almost liked, getting back into it with like a team after law school, because the last thing I did before law school was combat again.
Right.
That I think honestly, combat was probably the worst in terms of like the pressure and like the anxiety and like the stress of it. So I like, for a Top Gun, I'm sure you really do understand how hard it gets and like how hard it is.
It was really hard. And I don't really have a good answer for how to deal with it because I don't know that I dealt with it well. I don't think I did. And I really tried to, like, I'll give you a good example of this. Will Mueller, who you may or may not know, he was in the Gladiator final a couple of years ago, and Will and I are pretty close. And he was very sort of nervous going into the Gladiator tournament this year. And I just sort of told him, like, you can't go into any event thinking win or bust, because the best competitors of all time lose, and they lose a lot.
Yep.
And I try to tell my students now, we cannot go in. I have famously told my teams, we are most likely going to lose. Doesn't matter how good we are. Doesn't matter how prepared we are most likely going to lose. And I haven't said that as much as I used to as a younger coach. But I really try I think that's one of the jobs for a coach, is just to sort of manage emotions and manage expectations. And I tend to be a little bit more like you in the sense that I'm neurotic with this stuff, but
Yes.
You just really have to sort of not go into this stuff with high expectations. Do you sort of take it round by round, try your best, and understand that if things don't work out, there's sometimes just nothing you can do about it. So if you can sort of have that attitude, it's good. And I don't really have much advice for how to handle it. It sounds like you've got it figured out better than I did.
Well, one thing I had to come to understand, if this literally helps like anybody, is like sometimes it's just somebody else's time, like to have a win. And like it's not always my time to have a win. And so like, there's enough room in the spotlight for everybody to be successful. Like if I didn't win this one time, if I lost a ballot, lost a round, whatever, like there'll be more opportunities, and this is what I want to do with my life. So
Do you think you want to be a trial lawyer?
I definitely want to be a trial lawyer.
What kind of work do you think you want to do?
Well, I don't know, because I don't know. Like, it's hard. Like right now I'm on like big law path. So it's like, I don't really know a lot about like what I can do, but I know what I'm interested in. And I feel like I know what I would be most interested in terms of like the civil arena. It would be like personal injury, mass torts, just something, class actions. Like I want someone to have gotten hurt. Like, because that's my passion comes from people. So even like working, I'm gonna have to, work for these a big corporation. I still want to find my passion for people in that.
Well, that's really cool. And obviously that's the kind of work that I do. So I am right there with you, but you've got a lot more fake people to represent before we get there. Sydney, thanks so much for coming on. This was a blast. I knew it was going to be fun, but this was even more fun than I thought it was going to be. I hope you had a good time.
I had a great time. Thank you so much for having me.